Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Teesside Chat with my dear friend Jessi Burg and me as the host, Otisa Eads LLC. I am so excited for you to learn more about Jessi and what she does in the world and how she supports small businesses and entrepreneurs. Jessi, would you mind introducing yourself and share more about what you do and about your business, please?
Yeah. So it's funny, I'm trying a new webcam today just for total transparency. And so I'm gonna test out kind of like looking at it, but I'm kind of delighted about doing this interview with you today, Otissa, because I get to practice some fun things in how I'm operating on camera. So I hope everybody at home enjoys my new adventures. My name is Jessi Burg. I am the founder of Outgrow Your Garage. We work with community organizations in rural and urban communities, but mostly rural, um, to support and build business ecosystems. I live in a rural community and I spend a lot of time talking to people about what being a rural business owner means and how we can support small community businesses, particularly in this weird era where manufacturing jobs, which have historically been main jobs in a lot of rural communities, have been manufacturing and mining. And those jobs are very, very, very much going away or have already gone away. And so looking at what business really means in rural communities and how we can keep our tiny towns existing is a lot of what I do with my time.
Yeah, no, I just enjoy talking with you. And we've known each other for quite some time, actually. And so what I love about talking about business with you is we're very aligned in how we see the importance of small businesses and communities. And vice versa, right? Community is important for small businesses. Small businesses are important for communities. But I want you to share more about like your philosophy around that and what you have seen and why it's important for us to not just continue to support small businesses, well, the role of small businesses in communities.
One of the words we hear a lot thrown around for the last several years has been we really need these resilient communities. Okay, great. What does resilient even mean? What does it mean to your community? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the community around you? What does it mean to the world? Whatever. I used to have the same soapbox about respect when I worked with children and I taught team building, and they'd be like, we need to be respectful of each other. And I'd be like, great, what does that mean? Like, tell me what that looks like in actual practice. And so a lot of what I work on is how do you create actual systems that will take pressure in a community and in a business and in your personal life and go, okay, great. Here are the things that I need as a business owner. This is what I need in order to pay my mortgage, in order to buy groceries, in order to make sure my dog has her hyper expensive prescription dog food and her fancy arthritis shot once a month because she is the most spoiled dog that has ever been, right? Those are the things that matter to me, right? So I need to make sure that those things are happening. Um, Community wide, right? You need to make sure that your community has jobs, that people have the ability to earn money to pay for the things that they need. And that is pretty paramount. You need to make sure that you have housing that people can afford to buy and that is acceptable to live in, right? Where I live, there's a lot of houses that are technically affordable, right? You can buy them for 100 or $200,000, but they need 100 to $150,000 in deferred maintenance for them to be habitable. That's not helpful. That's not housing that most people are going to work because even if you can get a mortgage for $250,000, you don't have $100,000 in liquid cash to do the necessary repairs. So when we think about this community resilience piece, it's making sure that everybody has the ability to actually live in that community and thrive. And the specifics of that are going to vary by community. And then as business owners, our job is to support that really in tangible ways, right? How do you spend your dollars at local businesses, right? How do you decide where you're going to spend your free time? How do you support election day was yesterday? So how do you vote for the policies that are going to affect your business and your different pieces and what that means, right? So I really like this idea of breaking down what resilience means for your community. And I started my first business honestly because I needed a savings account. I was working in
Mhm.
environmental education. I loved environmental education. It was great, but there are 50 seasonal jobs for every one year-round job. You can work in that field for your entire career and you never make more than $60,000 a year. And that's really rough. right? So I started a business. I went into landscaping. I could do some really cool things as a business owner that I couldn't do as an individual. And one of the things I really love about that is we, like it or not, we exist in a society where, as a business owner, my opinion holds more weight than an individual, which I don't like and I don't support, but it's still
Mm-mm.
true. So part of my responsibility is, as I move through the world, I say, this is what I see in my community, and this is how my business works to affect those changes and build more community resiliency, more systems that can have crisis and bounce back without collapsing. Right? I
Yeah.
want, if the biggest employer in your community moves out, what does that mean? Will your town still exist? And that is a question a lot of small communities grapple with. And that's when I really enjoy working on, of what is the true character of your town and how do you make that happen? And it's true within communities too. Like, I don't do a ton of work in urban areas, honestly, largely because there's a lot of people already doing that, and there
Yeah.
aren't as many working in rural areas. So, but urban communities operate like that too. You have your little neighborhoods, right? And you have your little um, areas and your corner shops and those things that really make your local neighborhood or block or whatever it is really vibrant. I
Yeah.
know you live in Denver, and that's something
Hmm.
Five Points has been grappling with for a long
Yeah.
time, of how do you retain that character of Five Points
Yes.
as gentrification rolls in, as people are getting priced out, as you're grappling with the overall rising cost of living in Denver. What does that look like for the community of people who have lived in Five Points for a really long time?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you bring that up, and how you talked about different ways that small business owners do make an impact, right? And I think we've talked about, you vote with your dollar. Where is your money going? How are you supporting those other businesses around you? And that's why I tell folks, like, I try to think of all the different, coffee shops that are locally owned that I can go work at, or I can have my
Mm-hmm.
meetings there, or I can
Mm-hmm.
support. Some of these folks are, they're not just a coffee shop. These are areas that folks come in and they talk about the
Mm-hmm.
different discussions that are really important, or they have certain community and networking
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to strengthen um whatever the needs are. Like, there's a coffee shop, Quint's Coffee. I adore them. I love going there whenever I can. I love the different um, small groups that they offer, and I think that's really important right now. And I like that how you shared that in the rural communities, those are different things that they are facing versus our urban communities, and how to keep those things in mind as a small business. I really, really liked how you defined what resiliency looks like as a community, and how we sometimes can get those words confused in our mind, or we just simply just don't know what that means. So I really liked how you explained that. And, I'm really curious, when we talk about, businesses, and we talk about community and these different things. We were talking before the call about how you are really fired up about how folks can tap into organizations that support businesses, because there's resources that some folks maybe may not be aware of where they can tap in and where they can find support, where they can lean on for community, and what does that need to look like as a small business. Can you share more about that, why that's important, and where folks can learn how to tap into those resources as they are developing their business, whether they are an entrepreneur or they are maybe experienced business owner, but they're looking to have more community?
Yeah. So I think we're in this really interesting period of change around what business communities look like, right? So for a lot of the last century, we'll say, um, business community has largely been things like the Chamber of Commerce, or kind of done at these community events, right? Maybe churches, maybe things like the Elks Lodge. Maybe women business owners are sort of a different category if you're talking pre 1970. Um, but this idea of how do you create business community is one that has been true for a long, 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 long time, right? Business owners have always wanted to operate in community with each other, just to know what's going on. Some of that has always been, hey, I would like to sell to you. You're going to sell to me. You're going to refer your clients over here. Whatever that literally, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours mentality in some places, and then in other places you're going to see more of this idea of, how does our local chamber of commerce band together to do good for the community, right? What does our collective business look like
Yeah.
in town? So here I live in Delta, Colorado, which if you don't know where that is halfway between Grand Junction and Montrose on the very western edge of Colorado. I like to say I'm about 15 miles from Utah. It's a little further than that in actuality, but it gives you an idea of how far west I am. But out here, the Chamber of Commerce for a long time sponsored our Christmas parade, right? So that was one of the things that happened where the Chamber of Commerce, the business community came together and put on a parade for the townspeople at Christmas time when it's cold and it's dark and you want to come out, you just want to like have some hot chocolate. Um, and now what we're seeing is as the world of business changes, what do those organizations even look like? And a lot of that, I think, stems from if you have an online business, right? Say you're a graphic designer. Maybe you're going to go to your local chamber of commerce to get leads. And maybe you're going to get involved in that. Maybe you want your primary demographic to be the small businesses in your community. But if what you really like is doing logo design, there's going to be a limit to how many of those you can do within your immediate network.
Right.
So, where do you go to get more leads? What does that look like on the marketing side? And then, who are you looking at to mentor your business? Who are you looking at to get good ideas? How can you connect with the broader business community outside of your area? And so, depending on what you need, I think some people are going to really gravitate towards local in person groups where you're making local on the ground connections, right? This is a
Mhm.
spectacular thing to do if you are a realtor, where your business is very dependent on knowing every single person and every single thing about your entire town.
Mhm.
And that's going to matter a lot less if you are running a software startup,
Right.
right? And then you might be looking something more at Startup Colorado in terms of local resources to start those businesses. But I think a lot of it is what are you actually looking for? Are you looking for community? Are you looking to talk to people about your business problems? Are you looking for leads? Are you looking for a specific type of mentoring? I work with She Goes High sometimes, which is we'll call them a business community
Yeah.
in northeastern Colorado. And they are really focused on how do you exist in your business as a neurodivergent person, as an introvert, as a person who doesn't fit well in a lot of the groups that we have made for businesses.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
they really welcome that space of, oh, you are aware of what you need, and those needs tend to not fit in your standard sales group networking event.
Right.
Great. Come to us and we're going to really work with you on that. So if what you are is hyper ADHD with 3 kids and you're trying to balance all these things and you really need a community of people who understand what it's like to be overwhelmed all the time, cool, that might be a really great fit or there might be something
Right.
else in your area. So I think a lot about what do you need and then as you're an organization that is providing those services to businesses, being aware of who are the businesses that are going to attract
Yeah.
themselves to you and how do you get to them. I work with industry groups sometimes, and a big struggle with industry groups right now is they really are set up a lot of the times for established longer term businesses, right? You come to our industry conference, you learn a bunch of stuff, it is for established businesses. And then because it's a membership organization, your newer businesses in that industry might not be able to afford the membership. So they don't go to
Mm.
those events until they're already established. And so, as an industry group, if you can set up some pathways into your group for those new businesses in those first couple years, in those first 5 or 10 employees, then you're really growing your own membership base as your organization grows and providing professional development at the same time. So, really thinking about what is the long term of your organization and who are you trying to serve.
Yeah. No, I think that makes complete sense. And I also feel like, we know when you were talking about, how She Goes High, which is on meetup.com. If anyone has a meetup app, you can find She Goes High there. Um, I feel like as a business owner, getting clear on what you're looking for in terms of community, what you are looking for in terms of networking. Some folks might be looking for sales and leads and opportunities, to get more clients. Other folks might be looking for something different. So getting clear on what as a business owner, what am I looking for? What am I needing? What's in my area?
Mhm.
What's accessible to me? And then going and seeing, is it a chamber of commerce? Is it like She Goes High. There's a lot of different groups that are in person and virtual that you can join, but really getting aligned with what your needs are and where you're growing, and finding that
Mhm.
community to support you is really, really important. So I loved how you explained that. And also, since we're having a world that's like, there's folks that want in person, there's also folks that do not want in person. And I think that I try to remind folks that getting clear on if you want to do in person or not, because that will change on where you're going to go or where
Mhm.
resources to tap in. So I'm glad that you shared that as well, and how these groups or organizations can support their communities in different ways. And you gave that great
Mhm.
example of one in your area too.
Well, and I
Um,
think one of the things I think that's true about that also is one of the ways I evaluate organizations, and you've known me a long time, so you're probably going to laugh at me, is I evaluate them based on how woo-woo they are. Right. And so I'm not a particularly woo woo person, but I end up working with groups a lot that are more woo woo than I am just because of how I move through the world on this values oriented thing. But I'll go to events sometimes and the event will be like, we're going to meditate at the beginning of our business meeting and then we're going to thank the goddess for these things or whatever. And I know that for me, that's probably not going to be a group I'm going to want to be in long term because I just like to be a little more grounded. Whereas other people are going to go, I really appreciate the intentional grounding of this group. I really appreciate the intentional connection to the not just the business community, but the wider natural world around us, and really being thoughtful about your role as a human in the world, in addition to your role as a business person. And I think that's increasingly important to a lot of people. And so that is
yes.
another criteria I think is really important for both business owners and support organizations to evaluate themselves on, is where do you want to fall on what I a little pejoratively call the woo woo scale. And other people might call the, I don't know, compassionate empathy scale,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So I think that matters a lot too.
Yes, I'm glad you bring that up. And also to like identities, like you talked about being neurodivergent. There's some folks that want groups that are more inclusive around identities as far as being BIPOC or queer or whatever that works for them. They want to find a community that aligns with those identities and hopeful, values and those things as well. So again, so happy that you brought that up, because I think that's very important in business. And I think what's amazing about where we are now, there are so many types of organizations and groups that are out there that will align with what you are looking for. You just got to take time to research and vet, right? I tell folks, have a vetting process. Don't just join and a membership, the first meeting you go to. Like, take some time, see what other options are out there. Like I said, that's all about alignment. So again, I just really love how you share that information with folks. Um, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the ops side of running a business. With your expertise and my expertise, we talk about this a lot. And time was something that we were chatting about earlier, and kind of getting clear on what is time as a business owner, where is your focus, and how do you prioritize, especially when you are a one person shop or a one person show, whatever works for you. How have you navigate that, and what's something that you have noticed with either your clients or folks that you work with when it comes to like time management, as folks like to say?
Yeah. So first off, I think time management is a lie that is like totally being fed to us as this reasonable thing that you can do. You just can't, right? Time management is fake. There are the things that you get done, and there are the things you can't get done, and then there are the things that life is going to huck at you that you have to deal with, regardless of whatever else is going on. So time management is at best a prayer of like, I hope that this plan I made will work out. But that saying about how life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, I think is very applicable in the world of a one shop business owner. So I think a lot about what are my times of focus? Where can I realistically expect things? I
Yeah.
have pretty intense ADHD. And statistically speaking, so do a lot of business owners. One of the reasons people start businesses is because they don't fit well in the workplace. And so you find more neurodivergent people within the entrepreneur community than you do in the general workforce because we have to create jobs that work for us. There's some really interesting research and studies going on in that world. So search ADHD and entrepreneurship or neurodivergency and entrepreneurship if you are curious about that at all. There's lots of cool stuff happening there. But for me, a lot of it is what are my overall life goals? And then I kind of backtrack from there. So right now, I'm not working full time. I've had some life stuff going on that has necessitated me not really being able to work full time. So a lot of that has been what are the important things to keep my business going? I was very lucky in that the life stuff happening that I needed to go to Texas and manage for a little bit and have some other stuff that was happening was at a time where my business was doing kind of poorly anyway. But on the flip side, my business was doing kind of poorly, and that was really putting a lot of stress on that, particularly since part of why it was doing poorly was because of federal things happening that I could not control. Right.
Right.
I'm literally even right now waiting on a 5-figure check that I don't know when it's going to come because the government is shut down right now. And so someday I will get paid for work that I did. But that money is reimbursed through a federal government USDA grant, and grants aren't being funded right now because the government shut down. Great. I can't control that in my business. So really thinking about one of the things I've been working on is how do I, as a business owner, make sure that I have lots of different streams of revenue. So when
Yes.
the federal government decides they're not going to pay out grants, which has happened 3 times this year, um, on grants that I was directly working with, then great. Okay, how do I make sure I have other streams of revenue happening in that? And then beyond that, how do I make sure that my laundry gets done and we eat dinner every day?
Yep.
In my house, there are 2 of us, and by nature of my business was not doing well this year. I've been doing more of the laundry and the housework and the cooking and that sort of stuff. So we've been shifting. Back when I was in landscaping, we joked that we had a seasonal distribution of labor where during the busy season of my landscaping, I worked 80 to 90 hours a week and I did not do a single bit of cleaning, cooking, dishwashing, laundry. Mostly I left dirt stains in the shower. Was my contribution. I tracked dirt all over the house. And then the winter would come and I wasn't really working at all because I worked in a seasonal industry and we didn't
Right.
plow snow. And so I did 100% of that. So really thinking about what works for your life. One of the things we do in Outgrow Your Garage programming, we have online curricula. And one of the things that was really important to me as I built that online curricula was how do I fit these education modules into the life of the person doing them? So they're actually
Yes.
designed that you can do a single module, you can watch the video, do the activity, like from the school pickup line. You can download them to your phone, you can watch them on your phone, not connected to the internet. You could print out the activity if you wanted to, but it's something you can do while waiting to pick up your kid. It's something you can do from your truck while you're waiting for clients. You can listen to the criteria while you're walking around the grocery store, but really thinking about what does that ebb and flow look like in your life
Yeah.
and what are the things that matter. And then
Yes.
backtracking from there of what's reasonable for your business.
Yes, that is very similar to how I support my clients, my small business owner clients, and like how can you design a business that's aligned with the life you are trying to live, and hopefully, you really map out. Like I love what I said, your life goals. Like, what are your life goals? How much time do you want to be spending working in your business? And I think a lot of the
Mm-hmm,
times when I meet folks is they create businesses that are not aligned with their lifestyle at all. And that becomes a challenge in so many areas. And
mm-hmm,
so I love that you speak to that because that's how I work with my clients is let's backwards plan. Let's look and see, the life that you're trying to create or what are the things that you're trying to do with your family. Like especially family is very
mm-hmm,
important to my clients. Well, let's figure out how to do that because that's really challenging and you have the ability to create the space to do the things that you're wanting to do more of. And so I'm glad that you shared that and spoke to that. And I've noticed that folks do it out of order. They create the business and it's running and it's doing all the things and it's demanding more of them, and that was not a consideration in the beginning. And so now it's like competing. Your business is competing with the life that you are wanting to live, and
Hmm.
that can be very stressful. So I love that you
Yeah.
you spoke to that. That's what I share with my clients too. It's like, let's develop this plan that's going to be ongoing. And when you talked about time management being a farce, it is a farce. And when I work with my clients and do trainings, we talk about energy management. I usually say time management versus energy management, right? Like, we talk about this, but we don't talk about energy because we only have so
Hmm.
much energy a day, and that ebbs and flows depending on what's happening in our lives. And so,
There's a book called Your Money or Your Life that specifically talks about that in dollar terms. And it is hands down my favorite finance book, where it's like, okay, how many dollars is your energy worth? And what does that mean in terms of your time?
yes,
And it's just such an interesting way about thinking about finance.
yes.
So yeah, so if anybody's really curious about that, Your Money or Your Life is great by Vicky Robinson, Victoria Robinson, something.
Ooh, yeah, definitely gonna have to check that out. And yeah, I think that as business owners, we can get really caught up in doing what other people do. I remember 7 years ago when I started my business, people would be like, "Oh, I start my day at 5 a.m. I do this, I do that, I do that." And I was like, "Well, I struggle with early mornings. So I am not going to be a 5 a.m. admin person. It's just not, I wasn't doing that before, working a 9 to 5. I'm definitely going to not do that now. So I've really had to come up with things that work best for me. And so I have themes of certain days or certain seasons. I really feel like now I work in seasons. Like how you said, during the winter it's like this, during the summer it's like that. That is how I've started to really look at my business. It's been very helpful. Instead of trying to match everyone else's energy in their business, I focus what works best for me. And so I'm really, really glad that you spoke to that. And speaking of finance, great segue. Budgeting, pricing, all these different things. We spend a lot of our time focusing on sales and retaining clients so we can have a steady stream of income. And you also talked about having a variety of passive income streams, which is very important in a business. And so I'm curious for you, how have you supported the folks that you worked with in looking at budgeting and pricing, especially now, as we are wrapping up 2025? Can you believe it? What a year. Feels like 5 years in one. A lot of folks, there's so much anxiety, I mean, for everybody around what the economy is doing, what it's not doing, the needs that are not being met. There's so many different things that are happening in our communities. And so there's this anxiety of like, well, the cost of living is going up way too fast. And but yet, how do I increase my prices and not scare off my clients? Like, I'm really curious in your thoughts about that and how you have been able to support folks in your world and your clients.
Yeah, so a lot of the people I work with are in rural communities, which frequently are lower income. Not always true, but there is a correlation between living in a rural area, having fewer opportunities, and a smaller income. Um, and so we spend, and then a lot of the other business owners I work with also tend to come from the people who are they're seeking business support for their organization. So they're struggling with something, and oftentimes that thing is pricing. And I think a lot of people really they want to start a business and they want to do something good, right? There's a reason that they start a business. Um, Somebody said one time, if you just want to make a lot of money, there's easier paths than entrepreneurship,
Yes,
right?
there is.
And it is a pretty well known fact that honestly, if you want to make a lot of money, the people who are playing the stock market well and invest in things, you can make more money investing than you can running a business. Steve Jobs very famously made more money investing the money he made from Apple into the stock market than he made for Apple. Like he
Yeah.
got richer being rich than he did building Apple. So I think that's a really important thing to note, where nobody's in a business for the money, not really, because there are easier ways to make money. Um, so then we're back to, what is your business trying to do and what do you need to charge for that? Operations are a huge, huge piece of, do you have streamlined operations where you're not wasting money in your business? That's always a good question to ask, because a lot of times you are doing things inefficiently, particularly in those early stages when you have more time than money. So you end up doing things in ways that are longer because they cost time, but they don't cost money because you have time and you don't have money. And then as your business grows, you need to start spending money so you have more time, right?
Yep.
Time can buy you money, but money can also buy you time. And so
Yes.
figuring out where you're at on that spectrum within your business. And then don't feel bad about charging more dollars. You have to charge more dollars. You have to charge enough to be able to live. You can't be operating your business at a loss. And in order to know whether or not you're operating your business at a loss, you have to understand what's going on in your business. What are you spending money on? And what are the things you can get off your plate? What are the things that you absolutely hate doing that you can stop doing? Where are the places that you can pad your margins a little bit to offset things that aren't ever going to make money, right? Marketing
Right.
doesn't ever directly make money, right? It's pretty rare you can point at a specific campaign and say that made me
Yes.
dollars. More and more marketing is this ongoing expense to keep your name in people's space, to talk about what's going on in your business. You're
Yeah.
doing this relational building piece,
Right.
with individuals and then with the wider world around you. So you're never really going to be able to trace those things back to that. I couldn't put a dollar value on my time on this call and say, okay, I charge $150 to $250 an hour for consulting. So my goal for this call is to get 1 hour of consulting back. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
That's never going to happen.
Right.
So when you're thinking about those things, like, where do you want to spend time doing things that's just straight up relational building?
Yeah.
And then where do you really need to be making the money elsewhere to cover that expenses,
Yes.
right? And I think people need to feel better about charging more dollars. And that's a soapbox I
Yes.
stand on all the time, especially women, especially BIPOC. Um, there's a guy I know in the Denver area, Lauren Jenkins, who does um, mini, I'm going to get this wrong, and he's going to be like, I can't believe you got this wrong. Mini money market, something like that. I'm going to like look this up. And you can like put it up somewhere. But Lauren Jenkins is his name. He runs a really cool program teaching BIPOC teenagers how to manage their money with a specific goal of reducing the racial wealth gap. And a lot of those conversations are, you have to know how money works in order to be able to use it effectively.
Right.
And I love the work that he's doing. I had a really cool conversation with one of his teenagers about a rug making business that he was running in North Carolina. And this kid was like, I really want my neighbors to be able to afford this rug. And I went, great. But when you go to a farmer's market, right, you're in North Carolina and you are a teenage Black dude who makes rugs. You sell those rugs for a bunch of money to those rich white ladies who want to feel good about purchasing
Yes.
from a teenage Black kid, right?
Yes.
Like sell that for more money
Yeah.
to the people who want to and can afford that, right? You
Yes.
don't have to sell everything at this barely above profitable margin. So making those decisions in your business, if you're charging more, then it's easy to discount for the causes that you care about. When I was in
Yes.
landscaping, I always had a couple of projects we were doing basically at cost,
Right.
right? Because people couldn't afford the work that we were doing and they wanted to be able to have nice landscaping. Great. So here's what at cost looks like. We're going to try and work for that or find outside funding sources so that I wasn't losing money as a
Right.
business owner. I could still pay my staff. I could still do the things. But they weren't needing to cover my profit margin for overhead or whatever. Because that's the thing about it too, is when you charge at cost for something, all you're thinking about is the supplies and the time that goes directly into it. You're losing money on all that overhead to set it up on
Right.
the back end. So really being intentional about how those things operate. It's always easier to charge more and then discount for meaningful things. And this
Yes.
is how a lot of social impact businesses operate,
Yes.
right? Patagonia is the quintessential example of this. And I don't think there's a single Patagonia thing in my closet because I do not want to pay $400 for a jacket. Like, great, that's fine. I think what Patagonia does is super cool. I'm glad that you use their
Yes.
work as well. I think they do really great things for clothing
Yes.
manufacturing. It is outside the dollar amount that I want to spend on stuff, so I don't.
Right. Yeah.
Great, that's fine, but I'm not their target demographic either.
And I liked how you explain these different things. And also I think people getting clear on what is the money generating tasks in their business. I think that some folks do not get clear on that and have this idea that they have to do everything in a, and you know, everything. Like, okay, maybe you hire a bookkeeper because that might be better to not make mistakes when you're getting your accounting and tax prep figured out. Or where to outsource, where it might be better for you to
Mhm.
outsource something versus you when you could be doing more consulting hours or creating that
Mhm.
product that you need to sell to restock inventory, like really getting clear. And that helps with the
Mhm.
budgeting, right? When you are clear on what tasks are creating income, what is not, what operations could be more efficient and streamlined to get my time back, right? And I
Mhm.
liked how you talked about, too, there's that moment I think as a business owner where you get to decide with a client or a project or a situation where it's like, am I going to do this at cost? Am I not going to do this at cost? That is up to you.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I work with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of small business owners, and I always talk to them about investing. You are investing into this project. You are investing into me supporting you with this. And this is what the investment looks like. If you're not ready to make this investment, that's okay, but we can pare it down to where it's aligned with where you're at. But just be mindful you can't get everything on your wish list. That's
Mhm.
just how I talk
And
to
I
my
think
clients, right?
it goes back to that community building piece too,
Right.
where if you have a bunch of business owner friends, sometimes you can get a lot of that information for free anyway, just by virtue of having a conversation. Like, how many times have we sat around over a drink and chit chatted business operations, and one of
Yes.
us has gone, "That's a really good idea that solves this problem that's been mulling
Yes.
over my head," right? And that's just chit chat. And that happens
Yes.
with every single business owner in my life, where we have a conversation and we go, "Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that."
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's to me, like, that is really important. And I feel like in my life, in my work, I've tried to do that with my colleagues and friends like yourselves. And then also with my clients, I try to remind them of, especially, my nonprofits. I'm trying to remind them, like, I didn't set out to make millions of dollars as a nonprofit consultant. Okay. That's kind of silly. But I did care about the mission. I care about what they're doing. I care about supporting their team and their staff so they can do the incredible work in their communities. That's why I did this business.
Hmm.
And I've been able to make a living in and that's amazing. And with my small business owners, I tell them the same thing. I'm like, usually I'm working with folks, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but they're at that cusp, right? They're going from like entrepreneur to like, wow, the business is taking off. Oh goodness, I need more operations. I need staff. So they're at that cusp of growth.
Hmm.
And I tell them too, I'm like, I understand that you have so much ability to invest right now into your development, and that's okay. Let's see where we can meet you where you're at and reminding them of the resources that are at their disposal. And so I think that for me, I like that you use the word social impact and community, and there's ways of looking at that both as a business owner with your clients and as the folks that you keep in your circle, that you keep close to you, because that is also a resource. And so I think that when you talked about relationship building is just really important to consider. And that will empower you to say, hey, I'm going to charge more for this. And also, it can be a conversation and you can learn more from your client. Okay, well, what's going on? Okay, you're not ready to make that investment. Okay, well, let's understand
Hmm.
where you're at and where we can work together. I think that could be important for me. I want my clients to grow with me. That is how I look at it, and so that's been helpful. And I think that some folks can get really like stuck in I have to have this certain services list and pricing and it has to be perfect and it has to go like this. And I'm like, okay, that can be helpful, but it's also you're going to grow and change, your business is going to grow and change, the needs of your clients are going to change. So how can you be a little bit is it malleable? Like how can you be
Hmm.
flexible with that process, but also keep in mind you got to pay your bills and you got to take care of
Hmm.
yourself whether you're solo or you have a family or whatever that looks like,
Hmm.
those things are important. And that's also why you're here doing the work that you do. So I'm really happy the way you explained that and shared that and leaning into those resources that are available, just chatting with your business friends or your colleagues, I think has been really helpful for me and I think will be very helpful for other people.
Yeah. I had a thought and then I lost it.
It's okay.
So, oh well, that's
That's
just
all
how it goes
right.
sometimes.
That's how it
Um,
goes.
right. I know. And I do. I think it is really, there's a lot of that put your own oxygen mask on first, right? You have to support yourself before you can do other things. You have to know how your business works. You have to know what you're trying to do. And I do work a lot with that same demographic of people who are kind of like they're the only person in their business. They're graduating to the next couple of people, or
Yeah.
they're doing that first growth stage where you're getting burned by all the things that you wish you had known 3 weeks ago, but you didn't know you needed to know 3 weeks ago. And so now you're getting burned by it. Great. And really thinking a lot about that and how that operates. And when you find these weird problems, I think it's really important as a business owner to call your local policy people.
Yes.
There's a very real administrative burden on small business owners, just in terms
Yes.
of taxes is a big one. Everybody's mad about business taxes. And I, for one, am never annoyed about paying my taxes, but I'm very, very annoyed about the amount of time I have to spend to
Yeah.
file those taxes, right? And so, like, I'll pick on the city of Denver. The city of Denver has an occupational privilege tax that when I was working in Denver was, I don't know, like $5 per quarter per employee that made more than $500 a month in working in Denver, right? If you're a landscaping business with 50 employees and you work across the Denver metro area, like that tax is a hassle.
Yes.
Um, right? And so those types of things where it's $5 a quarter, so the city goes, great, whatever, this is a really cheap tax. I don't know why people are mad about it. You're like, yeah, because it takes 3 hours every quarter to figure out. So it
Yep.
doesn't actually cost me 5 hours. It costs me 3 hours of my time. Oh, I remember what I was going to say before. The other thing I think a lot of people get worried about in their businesses, they're really attached to the thing that they do, right? They want that list of services, they want that
Yes.
list of pricing. But what are people really paying you for? Right? What are the things people want to do it? And your business may have to shift. I'm on business
Yes.
number 3, and I don't have a single one that started and ended in the same spot, right?
Right.
Landscaping, I thought I was going to teach people how to be urban gardeners in their backyard, and I ended up doing water-wise design, install, and maintenance on and native plant habitat building. This business started out as online courses, direct sell to business owners, and now I work in rural community and economic development and business ecosystem building. Like you just the places you end up are different.
Yes.
So it is very much a follow the money in a positive way
Yes. And
in
then
your
also your
business.
evolution, right? Like as a person, you evolve. And so your business, as I say this so much to everybody, but your business is going to evolve as you evolve. Or when I talk to my nonprofits, the organization is going to evolve as the community's
Mm-hmm,
needs
mm-hmm,
change or adapts or whatever, or different curveballs that they haven't, thought of. And so I just don't want folks to get like super rigid with
mm-hmm,
when we talk specifically like budgeting and pricing and
mm-hmm.
all these different things. Like leave a little space and room for change because I guarantee it's going to come. So it's been so great talking with you. Literally having tea. Well, you were prepared and I wasn't, so you have your tea. I have to make mine after this. Jessi, you were
No.
just incredible and is there any, webinars you're doing or programs you're offering or anything that you'd like to share about ways folks can, reach out to you or work with you?
Cool. We actually have a pile of cool stuff going on right now. So cool upcoming things. We have been working with Downtown Colorado Inc. on a USDA grant funded project for the last year or so. And the programming for that is just out as of this week. So there is, in things that are directly related to this conversation, the Creating a Compelling Pitch course that is on the Downtown Colorado Inc. website. You can go to Downtown Colorado Inc. And then go to their resources. And the Creating a Compelling Pitch online course, which, like every other course Outgrow Your Garage builds, is divided into little modules that you can watch in short spans of time. It has lots of activities, so it's immediately applicable. But that is divided into, are you doing a relational conversation about your business where you're trying to build a relationship with somebody who you want in your network, or are you trying to directly sell somebody something, and how does that manifest in how you talk about your business? We also have practical bits on whether you're writing, whether you're speaking, whether you're building a blurb, whether you're whatever you're doing. So that's really cool. We are launching, or we have launched, a Chamber of Commerce pilot program that still has some slots in it. And so if you are in a business support or industry group that could use some support in professional development, That includes one workshop from Outgrow Your Garage per month for professional development purposes and access to all of our online courses for $300 a month. If you have less than 500 people who are using it, which is most chambers of commerce. So those are two really fun things that are happening right now.
Yay. And can you just share, I know we'll put it in the show notes, but your website.
Yeah, so our website is www.outgrowyourgarage.com. And we are also going to be relaunching our YouTube channel early next year. So if you wish to hear me talk more about random business topics, you should tune into that. We'll also have some um, different pieces on business operations tips, and those will be in both English and Spanish.
Yay! I am so excited for you and so excited for your business and all the things that you are doing. Jessi, thank you so much for being here and having a tea-side chat with me. And I can't wait to talk with you more and figuring out ways that we can connect and share more with others. So till then, bye for now, dear.
Bye.